I don't even care about any of that.
And we're recording.
It's Sunday, mid-morning. Your son just finished cutting the grass. The wife is taking the daughter to some shindig out in town. The birds are chirping. There's an odd sense of tranquility that come over you. Is it nap time? Fuck no! It's NASCAR season, baby! 40 American-powered V8 Super Stallion Speedsters! 20,000 horsepower, crank the TV up to 11, sit down and shut up! This is the Broken Axle Podcast. I'm Craig. This is Steven. We have a guest joining us, Tyler, brother from another mother. Let's get going.
That was the most American thing I've seen out of you in years, Craig.
They were not expecting that, by the way.
Just beautiful.
It was. I think I hear a bald eagle flying overhead right now. So, as Craig pointed out in such high volume, tonight's topic is about NASCAR, which any of the longtime viewers kind of know my opinions on NASCAR, and the recent NASCAR race at Bristol, which those of you in the automotive scene should be well aware of as the infamous NASCAR on dirt again for the first time in, I don't know, but a long time. So, for those of you that didn't get to take a look at it, after this, take a look on YouTube, watch the highlights. It's something. It's a thing to see. 3,400-pound stock cars hauling around on dirt. It's a thing to see. Richard Petty's weighed in with a couple of opinions on it. The three of us have some as well, and we're going to start going through some of that. Me personally, I think the reason that NASCAR is trying this is because they have been in decline for quite some time now. NASCAR viewership's been down. They're having a lot of just issues keeping their fan base up for a multitude of reasons. And this is something they're trying to do to get back to their glory days. So, Ty, let's cut it over to you. What's your take on how this went and what they're trying to do here?
Well, I definitely was excited when they announced Bristol on dirt. Unfortunately missed the race, but watching the highlights, I think the execution was crap. It looked
how you
a
really
lot
feel.
Like some dirty asphalt with a lot of dust. I think that hosting the dirt race in a bowl in a canyon was probably the worst idea ever because it made visibility zero, which led to a lot of interesting wrecks that we don't normally see. I think that if they did it at some of the other short tracks, it would be a lot better.
I'd agree with that. There's a lot of short tracks all around the country that have a lot of experience with getting a dirt track to hold up well to stock cars. And Bristol is not one of those tracks. And we definitely saw it. If you take a look, either watch the race in its entirety, which I don't recommend, or watch the highlights and take a look, half, 3/4 of the way through the race, the track looks to be in rough shape. I don't know if you saw that, Ty, but there's like divots missing. There's sections of track coming up. It didn't hold up well. And I don't really understand why, because like I've seen a lot of short track stuff around the country, and usually the track doesn't look that bad, even after a couple hours of stock cars piling around it.
I think they had it prepped 2 weeks before the race, maybe 3 weeks. And then they also had a lot of the typical dirt cars on it leading up to it. They had the trucks on it.
Yeah.
There was a lot of abuse before the cup cars ever got to the track, which by the end of it, when you have, 30, 40 cars running around for, what did it turn out to be, like 3 hours, 4 hours of racing?
With cautions and all, yeah.
Dirt tracks aren't really built for that.
That is true. Most what I call real short track stuff around the country is a lot shorter races, a lot less laps, all that. And
your grassroots home track is going to have like a 20-minute race, and then it gets washed down again.
That's fair. I could make a whole lot of arguments here for why NASCAR just doesn't need to be 200 laps. Just makes the series better in every way.
It used to also be, it was a testament. They wanted some sort of romanticism with longevity, right? Any good mark of a great mechanical running machine is the fact that you can pound on it for hours on end. And even as a kid, I would be wondering, why am I watching a race that's 2 or 3 hours long when all they're doing is circles? If you make this thing one pit stop limited, maybe 100 laps or whatever the equivalent of, a fuel tank, one fill up is, you get more aggressive driving, right? You get guys who are going in there and instead of doing endurance racing, they're now doing time attack, right? They're now trying to pile against each other and get to the lead position. And we see the changes that NASCAR has done over the past few years of trying to give points out for leading laps as well as winning races and dividing up the races into different segments and then, making everyone come in and pile back up and then spread back out again, blah, blah, blah. And the execution at a broader scale, not just dirt track, but at a broader scale, is trying to make NASCAR more relevant. And I think this segues into the biggest issue that NASCAR has now is that the racing series is no longer relevant. It's no longer relatable.
It's pretty solid. I would say, there's a lot to unpack here. As far as the durability thing, there's a lot of options there.
Let's get the toad out.
Yeah, right? There's a lot of ways to do durability, right? There's several race series that mandate, that might have been bad grammar, whatever, that mandate like one engine or so many engines for the season. And that's a way you can do durability without having to do excessively long races, right? If you got to make one engine last several races, well, there you go. There's your durability check.
Yep. I mean, look at how F1 does it with, it's like 3 engines a season now or something for the season. Like that.
That's not just F1.
Yeah,
there's a few other circuits that do that same kind of thing.
Yeah, I think IndyCar does something similar.
German Touring does the same thing. I think it's 5 engines and 3 transmissions max.
Yeah.
And then there's a penalty if you have to pull into like the extra one.
Yep.
Yeah, and that'd be a good way to make durability part of the race without necessarily having to make the race 4 hours long.
Yeah.
It's not so much that I hate it being 4 hours, right? Because like I've seen 24 hours of Le Mans. It's cool sometimes. Like maybe having 1 or 2 long races over the course of the season would be cool. But now it's gotten to where basically every NASCAR
Daytona
race is like 4 hours. Yeah. What's up, man?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And even Charlotte, right? Like the Daytona 500 should always be like a headliner event. That's basically the NASCAR Super Bowl, right? It's just the biggest thing. And then of course you got places like Talladega, but places like Charlotte, huge ass racetrack. 200 laps of that is still 2.5, 3 hours in on that, and you get cars running out of fuel at the very end of it. Why does that have to be 200 laps?
Yeah, I mean, compare that to sports cars with IMSA. You got 4 endurance races in the year. You got the Rolex 24-hour, you got the Sebring 12-hour, Watkins Glen 6-hour, and then the final at Petit Le Mans with 10 hours, and the rest of them are 2-hour and 40-minute races.
Yeah.
Like, you're not pushing these 3-4 hours with a bunch of cars turning left. And usually it's the same 3 guys winning every race.
Yeah. And I kind of feel that, right? Like, I know that was a struggle for F1 for a while. F1 was having some problems with viewership because everybody said it was just boring to watch. Big game of follow the leader.
And that's something they still suffer from.
Yeah.
Well, this goes into, and F1 is trying to change too. They're trying to incorporate 18-inch wheels now to make it more relatable to street cars.
18-inch wheels.
Yeah, but like NASCAR stock cars,
dependency.
Stock cars, I think, are going to center lock this year, which is separating again relatability. Now my Ford Taurus doesn't have, there's no relation between the car that's on the street between what's on the dirt.
Okay, so the number of lug nuts is literally the last thing on the list of relations between a NASCAR Ford Taurus and the current Ford Taurus.
But
which number of lug nuts is the only thing that relates to the street car these days.
But it is an example of how they're trying to make strides and steps to change kind of the racing arena. And I get to a certain point that you have like IMSA or IMSA, however you want to pronounce it. And then you have like the GTO series and all that stuff, like good old fashioned Trans Am, which they should definitely bring back. But like,
hell yeah.
Stock car racing has gotten so far derivative from its fundamentals. Like it used to be the literal Ford, Chevy, Dodge. They'd have to make AMC. They'd have to make homologation cars to sell to the public because then you have to sell these motors to racing teams to go win races, right? It's the whole reason why you built the car in the first place was to sell cars. And now you've taken I don't want to say the dealership experience away from NASCAR, but now there's no relatability. It doesn't matter if a Ford, Chevy, or Toyota wins. Like I'm not going to knock Toyota about participating in American stock car racing. However, they don't have a full-size sedan rear-wheel drive V8.
To be fair, neither does anyone else except Dodge.
Right.
Neither does Ford. And neither
Right.
Chevy did, and then we didn't buy any because we're stupid. But again, it's the relatability. And so I'm going to start in with the propositions that suddenly change, right? I'm going to pull a chapter here from James Humphrey and just ignore all logic. I say that we have to regulate motors that exist to production vehicles. And now we're at the dawn of electrification. Thanks, Biden. I honestly think that we should limit stock cars to 3-liter turbocharged engines, V6s. I think it's more relatable, it's more obtainable, and every manufacturer has an option for a turbo V6.
So here's my piece on that.
Go ahead.
If you're like, NASCAR was built on the old
V8
rum running days, V8s, like let's get away from the cops. And then it moved into, race on Sunday, buy on Monday. And now the only real like professional big time series that do that is GT3 racing.
Yeah.
They are
GTLM.
cars that are built off these stock frames and taken from there. Yeah. GT3, GTLM, GTE. You got GT2 now and then GT4.
Yep, GT4.
Leading into.
Which is where Mustangs race at.
And then you get it back down to like, the Miatas and all that. If you're taking NASCAR into that, you might as well just make an oval GT3 series.
So I totally feel you there, Ty. What I would like to see personally, and I think something that could bring NASCAR back, is a slightly different skew from what Craig was talking about.
Okay.
That we need to take NASCAR back to stock cars. I mean, bone-ass stock. Like, literally out of the dealership.
So SSCA Street. I mean, that's
no stocker than that. I mean, down to the tires they come with at the dealer.
Yeah, I mean, even with them being stock cars from the dealer, like back in the day, they weren't stock engines. Those things were definitely garage tinkered.
I mean, as we were talking about before we started recording these days, but if it's racing. If you're not cheating, you're not trying, right? Like
it's harder these days for somebody to do that. With
to cheat, yeah.
As electronic as these cars are.
All the more reason. Because that makes it, I think it makes it more accessible to, middle class people, average Joes racing. That's the idea.
That's where you get the series like the Lemon series come in. You've got Farah, another racing series. You've got, all the SCCA levels all the way up.
But I'm not going to say that they don't have history because the SCCA has, I think they just celebrated their 75th year, but they don't have the heritage and the prestige and the stigma, I guess, of NASCAR. And going back to factory showroom stock racing would be cool and neat or whatever else, but it's not necessarily adrenaline pumping, excitement. Now, if we had a Camaro, say an SS1LE compared against a Track Pack Mustang versus whatever Dodge's version of turning is.
Like a Scat Pack Challenger.
Yeah, Scat well, to be honest, I think a Scat Pack wide body is like their handling car or their TA, I guess. But like, if we compared all them together and then regulated the manufacturers to...
And the Supra. Let Toyota play too.
No. Fuck Supra, you're still on my shit list for that. But I have a Chevy rant. Now I have a Toyota rant too. So sorry, Scotty. But anyways, if we regulated their engine displacement to, say they regulate it to 396, right? That's still a big block or still a big cubic inch engine.
Nope.
If you're willing to sell it to the general public, hell yeah. I want to see some more 8-liter V8s on the street again.
So the thing about that is that then that kind of forces, and like, here's the big joker too, is because like Chevy and Dodge both make stuff that's bigger than 6 liters, which is awesome. Ford does too. They just won't sell it to you, right?
Yep.
You force them to put that 6.8 liter or whatever else, or their 5.8 liter that's turned up a little bit into a Mustang, and then roll that out into an actual stock car. And I know
the downside of this is what exactly?
Exactly. And though there is no downside, but I know this is getting kind of into what's the racing series below actual like competitive or professional NASCAR? It's the
You get down into ARCA,
ARCA,
yeah. Well,
and then
ARCA
you get into
uses.
dirt,
and
Well, I
then you
know.
get into like the dirt split, and then you get like
late model.
there's the late models and stuff on.
No, I'm talking about I think GT4 and ARCA is where they actually use body and white shells from the manufacturers to modify them for racing. And in a way, I think that's what NASCAR needs to do, and they need to do it with NASCAR's budget and not one of these smaller brands. So I think it goes all back down just to relatability and accessibility. The drama and the drivers they've obviously changed. Rest in peace to Jeff Gordon. Please come back. But the drama and the excitement and the adrenaline from these young bucks slinging cars around at high speeds hasn't changed. And we have now our new hot shoes, but it's the cars I think themselves that are just so far out of touch. It's just not. It's not exciting. It's just not relatable.
There's a couple of things in play here, though, right? So you have the cars aren't related to factory cars, as me and Ty were laughing at with the Focus thing. Ford doesn't make a car anymore unless you count the Mustang. It's literally the only car they make.
So let's race a Mustang.
Right.
They do. GT4.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
GT4. It's glorious. The car is gorgeous. Everywhere.
Chevy, I think, what's the Chevy NASCAR right now? I think it's an Impala. Or at least
they're based off the Camaro, I think.
Are they off the Camaro? Okay, for a while it was like an Impala or something that had no bearing on anything.
Just like Ford is built off the Mustang and
yeah.
Well, for a while it was the Taurus. And I think the Malibu.
And the Malibu, that was it. Yeah.
And then in the 90s, Dodge had the Intrepid.
Yeah.
Which, bless them.
Brilliant car.
Right. But I'm saying, so both Chevy and Ford don't even offer a rear-wheel drive V8 anything as far as a car. Ford doesn't even make cars anymore.
Stellantis might change that for Dodge too coming up. We don't know.
Right? Who knows? But so the cars aren't related to factory cars, at least not in any significant way. Same thing for the Toyota, right? Like they don't make anything with a V8.
Do you guys remember back in, what was it, 2008 timeframe-ish that they actually made a stock car swapped Camry?
Yep. And drove around with it. Yeah, for publicity stunt.
It's like they made a mockery of the whole stock car thing. It's just like, instead of actually building a production car and selling it to people, we'll just take a NASCAR engine, swap it into a Camry, and here you go.
Yeah, so NASCAR is like this super crazy, not related to real cars, but they're also really kind of shitty race cars.
Right.
Like they're probably, for the amount of, especially for the amount of money that's sunk into them, the slowest race cars imaginable.
Yeah, I mean,
like they're not good race cars.
Something with some thin sheet metal that weighs 3,400 pounds.
Yeah, this two-frame race car.
Tires are too wrong. The brakes are too small.
It's carbureted V8.
Yeah, the Aero doesn't even...
They're fuel injected now, but...
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean...
We finally moved up into 1980s technology.
They don't...
I think a lot of NASCAR's problem comes down to just keeping the attention of their fans. Like, these races generally these days get into these just long runs of just
looping,
boring trains, just knocking laps off.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to really watch that in NASCAR. Like NASCAR, they want to see door banging. They want to see the wrecks. They want to see the action. They don't want to just see laps getting ticked off.
But that's the other thing. I think that going back to a factory style vehicle would push down the production cost of NASCAR a whole bunch. To where more teams are willing to compete, and B, people are a lot more willing to wad up a car.
Yeah, but I think it also comes back to where we talked about why is a race 3 or 4 hours long? Shorten the race. There's a lot more incentive to push towards the front early on.
Yeah, and
push hard. It's going to keep people pushing the entire race instead of just like sitting in and waiting until the last 30 laps.
Yeah. Yeah, if the race is only 50 laps to begin with, people are going to have to push hard from the get. Because if you get 2 or 3 laps down in a 50-lap race, that's it. It's over.
And I think that was the main point of the stage racing, but it's not good.
Well, so on that accord too, would you guys want to get rid of the whole like points basis too, where it's now unless you meet the qualifiers for every race at the end of the season, right? Only the top 8 guys are actually racing for the championship. So what are the other 32 guys doing? They're just showing up to show up. Like that takes out incentive to push.
I also think that we should NASCAR should split up, and I think they already do this, but you never really hear about it. The manufacturer from the driver standings, the way some of the other race circuits already do
have
that. Have they done that already?
Manufacturers that there's a manufacturer's title and there's the driver's title, which they just don't talk about the manufacturers much because that's not really the face. The face is the driver.
Let's be honest here. The fact that Ford has nothing to do with the car that's out there on the NASCAR track.
Right.
I mean, literally nothing.
Like,
I would be impressed if there's a single Ford part on that thing.
You say that, but Ford and Chevy are the two that are going toe-and-toe for manufacturer titles, right? Dodge is nowhere, but Dodge is the only one who makes an actual rear-wheel drive V8 vehicle.
Right.
So, like, at this point, I think honestly, this is what happened, right? Into the 90s, when NASCAR got revised again because of major accidents, which is a good thing, right? NASCAR technology has spurned more safety. It has spurned more safety regulations for racetracks that has gone overseas now. I think the issue, though, is that now the cars are, too exclusive and unrelatable. Other manufacturers don't want to get into it because it's too niche. Even Japan has its own version of stock car racing. So what would be the difference? Go ahead.
Their viewership's on the slide down. Like, nobody's going to want to jump into a race circuit that's sliding down.
And I think in the 90s is when we started seeing the decline of this. And then they were banking not off the cars of making money, but NASCAR was banking off of the personalities, right? You had, Juan Pablo Montoya, you had Tony Stewart, you had the, Earnhardts, right?
For a while. But you also got to remember that in the 90s, you were still riding on the wave from the 80s. Right. And even up into the 80s, the NASCARs that were on, they didn't really, they're tube frame race cars. But they still bear some resemblance to the street cars that they came from.
And they spurned the aero cars of the 80s, which everyone forgets about as being awesome, but it was awesome. Like, the Aero Monte Carlo was cool, or the Aero car.
Because there was so there was rules back then that the aero of the race car had to be within a certain amount of the aero of the street car, where they had those body buck templates and stuff. So, like, if your street car sucked for aero, your race car also sucked for aero. Yeah, and that's exactly, you're right. That's where the Aero Monte Carlo came from. That's where the Aero Thunderbirds of the 80s. Everybody forgets about it, but turns out the 80s T-Bird was a huge killer in NASCAR.
Right.
The round body the fat body T-Bird.
Yep.
So random, just something for you guys. I know I was talking about this earlier, but I'll actually read the quote from Petty.
Okay.
About this whole scenario. The king himself. And if you don't know who Richard Petty is, fucking Google it. You suck.
Open a book and catch up.
Yeah, right. So a quote from Petty. He's talking to Auto Week. I have to be careful here because there's politics involved. I guess I'm looking at it from an old time deal because we spent years and years trying to get away and become a professional sport. Dirt track racing is not professional and we're going backwards. It would be like taking a pro football team and going back to play at a high school field. I like Petty. I kind of don't agree here.
Yeah.
Well, hold on a second. There's two viewpoints that we have here, right? Because we have the viewerships and what our idea of NASCAR is, and then you have a guy who is literally there on the beaches running these cars, trying to get the traction, trying to get the publicity, trying to get the money to race in a professional outfit. I bet you if we let Petty actually run the thing, he would try to make it more like a GT series, which, again, would be less about the drivers and more about the cars.
But at that point, why not just race in GT?
Right.
Like, GT already exists.
It's probably because the fat cats at NASCAR corporate don't want the league to die.
Well,
it's either got to change or die. Like, that's...
Yeah, it's going to go one way or the other. Like, there's no in-between. You can only ride this funk that they're in for so long before they...
Rednecks drinking beer and, grilling hot dogs. It just only lasts for so long if you don't have any substance.
Eventually, like, especially with the rise in costs, like, eventually it's just going to drive people to do this at home.
Yeah. So what do you guys see as now viable changes given, we'll start with you, Tyler, then what would be like the major changes that you would see or would like to see?
I mean, I would just like to see shorten races, get rid of the stage racing crap. Because like that really like the idea of it, I understand why they implemented it, but it just didn't work. And the fact that they're still continuing it just blows my mind. So get rid of stage racing, shorten the races to like at most 100 laps, with the exception of like maybe, like Daytona or like.
I wouldn't do it based off of laps. I do it off of pit stops. You have a race that's designed around 3 pit stops.
That's fair, because depending on the length of the track, that can change lap counts quite a bit.
120 lap at Talladega would just be, fucking forever.
Well,
still.
like that's what I'm saying. Like you have like your Daytona 500, you have the big Talladega race.
Yeah,
because that's also important. You have like the big race,
Brickyard,
like
Indy,
Brickyard, and you get one of your 2 asphalt Bristol races. Probably the night race be the long one.
Bring back Watkins Glen,
but like
hell yeah.
And not run the short track. Run
the boot. and go back to the for a while there they did
Roebling Road.
Roebling Road, and they did the Auburn Raceway up in Washington, which forced NASCAR to actually have a presence on the West Coast.
But like I would like to see changes like that. I would like to see them actually I think the inclusion of more road courses and them trying to do wet races and stuff is adding.
Oh, that's a whole
definitely
thing, right?
really exciting.
Don't push out
and something I'm actually looking forward to because of the way that Daytona went this year.
Wet races.
That Daytona road course race was awesome.
I don't think they have a tire supplier for a wet tire, but I mean that's a pretty minor problem.
They do because Daytona was wet. They had wet tires.
They have wet tires now. Okay.
The what is it? The Nationwide Series.
Yeah.
They run wet races.
Yeah. I thought they just pitted. I thought they just postponed the race.
Nope. So the Nationwide Series, they have wipers on them especially when they do road courses.
And they got headlights.
They'll put the wiper on them.
Yeah.
And then they have the wet tire option, and they moved that up to the Cup Series this year.
Nice.
And Daytona was wet.
Yeah, so that puts a new strategy element in, right? Mm-hmm. Especially when it's one of those like hazy, kind of sort of wet. You're like, oh, do we go for the wet tire?
Yeah, and that was a big thing with Daytona this year is because it rained. It did the typical Florida weather. Rain for 5 minutes in 3 corners, and the rest of the track is dry. Mm-hmm. So what do? Like those 3 corners are soaked. The rest of the track is dry.
You want to make up time.
There's a lot of tire strategy come into play in that race, and it definitely worked out in some teams' favor.
Yeah, that's fair. So I think we're all in concurrence here that the dirt at Bristol thing was a complete failure.
I give it like I hate to be the cliche here, but I give it like an A for effort because at least they're trying something. And no doubt it was something on a Discord server somewhere where a guy was like, let's just do it on dirt and see what happens. Like, cool. But, like, there has to be some, like, there obviously is a negative response to it all, and I don't think they're going to try to do it again. But, like, why not add fucking jumps this time? Like, let's go crazy.
Whoa. Let's not start hating on Stadium Super Truck, because Stadium Super Truck is awesome.
And Stadium Super Trucks don't have the issue that NASCAR has, right? Where people actually want to watch Stadium Super Trucks, right?
That's why I bring up do a dirt race at a different half mile, like Richmond or Martinsville, somewhere that you're going to actually have like wind blow across the track and clear some of that dust out. Yeah. You're not going to get that in the bowl at Bristol.
Or do it somewhere that's like a actual dirt track.
I think
off-road.
I think the big problem
like
with that
oval. A real dirt oval
is real dirt ovals are like what, a quarter mile?
Yeah.
Not many of them are really half mile.
You get all 40 cars.
Fit 40 cars.
No, that's true. You have to cut the field down to like 15 or 20.
Well, so and then at that point you're doing a novelty race. It's no different than Watkins Glen, right? Then it doesn't matter who shows up and who doesn't. You're just doing it for sponsors. Like Home and Movie Racing.
They would have to, if they did that, they would have to bring in heat races.
Heats. Yeah. But
that could be an option. And then that you could also.
Those are way cooler.
And then
short
you could
races
also
like that.
Add in other manufacturers too. Like I would honestly love to see like a Honda V8. I think that'd be rad as hell. Like Honda Corporate, if you're listening.
Pull the motor out of the Ridgeline.
The Ridgeline uses the V6. It's just J Series. Yeah, but J Series with 2 more cylinders, 9,000 RPM. Do it. Like that would be cool. But what happened? Like, what if we could see someone like, I said Honda already, but what if we could see someone like Hyundai, like curveball, so show up in stock car? I think that would be cool, and honestly, that would be great for the brand. They have the Stinger.
Random tidbit: they sell a V8 4-door sedan already.
Yeah, it's the
Genesis.
G90.
No, the Genesis.
Yeah, the G90.
Yeah, is what it's called. The Genesis.
The G90.
Because Genesis is its own line now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
but yeah, they
Genesis
have a 5-liter
70, the G80, and the G90.
Yeah. So they use the Tau
5-liter V8. Yep, the Tau V8.
Yeah. And it's based off of whatever the Stinger platform is, and they call it the G90, whatever else. So they do make it, but like, what if you could see like a Hyundai or a Genesis and like BMW racing against Ford, Chevy, and Dirge? Like, that'd be pretty cool. That'd be wild. In Honda.
Yeah.
NASCAR.
That's fair. Like I said, I don't know that I don't even know that the effort was right. Obviously, the execution went poorly at Bristol, but I don't even know that the thought process was right, because I think that NASCAR, like upper level NASCAR, is looking at it as a, back in the day we were popular because we ran on dirt. Nah, not so much. There's a lot more to this than just the track surface as to why NASCAR is doing so poorly.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, you still have not ARCA, but the one below ARCA, like late models, minis, all kinds of stuff still runs on dirt and is still ridiculously popular. World of Outlaws, one of my personal favorites to watch.
I don't.
Chili Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure like the late model stuff gets the revenue that NASCAR wants, though. That's my thing, right? Like NASCAR,
they don't spend
it is
that.
one of the big, or at least it was one of the.
Yeah. I mean, they don't spend that much, though. It's not that expensive to campaign a late model car,
right?
Or ARCA, even.
True.
I'm not sure. I honestly have no idea what it costs to campaign an outlaw car, but also I don't care because they're just so cool. It doesn't matter.
Would you say nowadays is it still Camping World? What's the truck series called now?
Camping World Truck Series.
So would you say that that's more relevant nowadays than actual stock car racing is?
No, that shit's fucking
it's
stupid.
on the same level as NASCAR. I mean,
sure,
they actually share a same cylinder number.
Yeah, who sells a regular cab pickup again?
A general shape.
Ford.
Yeah, Cricket.
Ford.
Past the general shape, there's not.
Nobody sells a regular cab pickup.
Not only that, but I think their cabs are also longer too, because in the Camping World trucks they sit farther back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that's again, those have nothing to do with real trucks.
Right.
Yes.
Now, speaking of truck racing, for the fans out there that heard us comment earlier about Stadium Super Truck, if you want to see trucks going around a racetrack, go watch Stadium Super Truck.
Flying 30 feet in the air.
Hell yeah. America.
Yeah, it's 8,000 pounds. They make 700 horsepower. They got 4 feet long foot travels or whatever else it is.
Yeah, they're like pre-runners, but on paved racetracks.
Steroids.
Well, they don't have to be paved. I think they do cross country. They do cross surfaces.
We got to thank Robbie Gordon for that.
I love seeing them on the paved racetracks. Yeah, we do. Robbie Gordon's the one that started that.
Yeah.
I love watching those things just hey, let's put a jump in the middle of the back straight. Why? Just because. And
then they make it mandatory. Right? You have to hit the jump so many times in a race, period.
Yeah, you don't have to hit it every lap.
Fast.
Yeah, you don't have to hit it every lap.
But you do that in NASCAR. It's hey, you have to take this. So they could do that for actual stock car racing too. Do what they do in rally, where you have a joker part of the track, and you have to take it at least once, right, per pit stop.
Daytona 500, you have to do one joker of the infield.
Why not?
The infield race course, or just the infield in general?
The infield race course. Yeah, you got to give somewhere for the fans to camp out, right?
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know if I'd want to camp out in the infield if they're going to run through the infield.
Say they only have to do maybe 5 laps of the infield per pit stop, so you have 10 laps outside, and you have 5 laps on the inside. That would be fun.
Yeah, but do you really want to see a 3,400-pound stock car get yeeted out into the...
Yes. What the fuck do I care? I'm the person paying to watch it.
I'm thinking Ty, the merge back out onto the oval is going to be just brutal.
Don't care.
Trying to hold one of those down on the bottom line coming out at any type of speed while you got, Martin Truex coming down the front straight at 200 miles an hour, and you're doing, 60.
60 with it pinned.
Yeah, you're rolling up gears, but it's just not helping.
Going to be doing driver suit changes in the middle of the pit stops, too.
Right. But yeah.
It's like adding a chicane down the back straight.
I'm pretty much every course that has one of those, I don't get it. The optional chicane.
Well, so on some of those courses, this is a tangent of a tangent of a tangent, but on some of those courses, it was for safety reasons. They got to too high of a speeds.
So, comment on that with NASCAR's road course race at Daytona.
All right.
So, round one, when they ran at Daytona, road course, a lot of the top drivers were complaining that at the bus stop on the back straight, dirt was getting pulled onto the track because they couldn't figure out how to keep it on the paved stuff. So,
NASCAR, what do you want?
Thank you, Daytona International Speedway, for the brilliant work that you did in adding sausage curbs to make them stay on the paved stuff. You didn't make it wider. You didn't accommodate to their wants of straightening the track so they didn't even do the fucking bus stop. You added sausage curbs, and I love you.
Yeah.
No, NASCAR guys, right? Like just, I guess that's all the track. No more room available.
No, like
there is no more
sausage curbs that are like 4 inches tall.
Oh,
sausage curbs.
Yeah, I was thinking like the little ones. I was like, you see like some of the other race series where they use all of the track and then all of the curb.
Yeah, no,
then maybe a little bit more than that.
If you have 2 wheels, that's all you need, right? For F1, just 2 wheels on the tarmac.
And not so much F1, but I've definitely seen a few like LM type cars where they'll use all of the track and then all of the curb, and then maybe have an inch or two of tire out past that.
Shoot, at the Japan at the Tsukuba circuit, they go off on the front on the back straight when they come off the big the right hander. They'll go off the rumble strips onto the pavement on the other side of the rumble strips, and then on the dirt of that, just try to keep the thing straight.
Hey, I mean, Ty's our resident semi-pro racer here. Like, you got to use all the available track, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not kicking up a little bit of grass, you're not using enough.
You're not using all the track.
Yep. I like it.
But all right, to the peeps out there, we'll have this whenever I stop getting lazy. We'll have this up on the pages. We'll put up some polls, maybe, see what people think, ways to fix NASCAR. If anybody at NASCAR decides they want to listen to this, feel free to hit me up. We'll totally sponsor it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, hit me up on Instagram. I'm nomadic.wheelman, and if you want to talk, we can talk. Yeah. Especially if you're thinking about engine configuration changes or even drivetrain. I think the traditional stock car racing V8 wheel drive carburetors it's outdated, no longer relevant. 4 speeds, come on, man.
David Freiberger and the Hoopty Drags would like a word with you.
Okay, so he saw a need right there, right, and fulfilled it with his own racing series. NASCAR's not doing that.
It's a fair point.
Just saying.
Fair point. Oh, you want to take us out, Craig?
All right, guys. I appreciate you all for listening to the Broken Axle podcast. Thank you, Tyler, for joining us on this episode. Love to have you back around in the next one. And for the rest of you out there, let us know how we did. Facebook is where you can find us at the Broken Axle podcast. You can find me on Instagram at nomadic.wheelman. And I think Justin now has Just Can't Drive 55, which if you know that song, you probably are people. Yep. Sorry, not Justin, Steven. And Tyler, do you want them to hit you up, or you're going to be Mr. Ghost?
It's Atomic_Mechanic, I believe. I can't even remember my own social medias.
Yeah, it's so often used. And go bust some knuckles, guys. See you later.